Fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us. We have Eitan, who is our sort of legal expert, and we can see Luvo there, doing all the things, driving with a mask on and listening. Lovely. So Eitan, thank you so much for joining us. You guys might have heard that Eitan's been part of the family for a while. He too is an entrepreneur, and in the early stages of Legalese, he actually connected with our 2017 cohort, and that's where I met him too, and gave a session, a crawl session on legal compliance. And I just remember him walking in going like, is this the lawyer? I think I actually looked at Ian and said, are we sure this is, which I kind of loved. And I loved also the fact that finally I'd find someone who had similar hair to me as well. So, so Eitan has been an attorney and is obviously a practicing attorney. Some of you might have had some sessions with him. He has a background in commercial and in entertainment law and tech entrepreneurship. He has worked across sectors from creative, advertising and media to educational and non-profits, as well as tech industries. And he does a little bit of lecturing, he's a mediator and a bit of a DJ. And we had a bit of a conversation about potentially a mixtape situation. So I think I'm going to task him to get us a playlist going. I think that could be fun. We're having a gathering with our fellows next weekend, Eitan. So I challenge you to supply us with a fantastic playlist that we can share.
Okay. I'm happy to. I don't know if people would be into my choice of music. Wow, it feels like a million years since I've actually chosen any music for anyone. COVID's been long, but yeah, I'm up for that challenge for sure.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, and please go ahead. I don't know if you want to add to that intro, Eitan, but the guys pretty much know what's on the cards for today. So I think let's kick it off.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Morning, everyone. So just a small intro. This is a new kind of space for me, running workshops on Zoom. I've been to a couple now, but let's see how it goes. I don't profess I'm an expert in this. I definitely prefer the medium of being in front of everyone and being able to be a bit more engaging. One thing I will ask is if everyone can, I know everyone's not in a position to, but if you can, you're able and you're sitting in front of your computer, let's switch the videos on. It means that we can be a bit more engaging. Of course, if you don't want to, or you're not appropriately dressed or something, like that's fine. But it's nice because then we can at least kind of be, to some extent, a bit more engaging with each other. The last thing just to add before I dig in is, look, this session is completely for you guys. I can talk about startup law and legal topics ad nauseum. So the idea here is for you guys to get value out of it. If you're not getting value, or if you have questions, or if I'm going in a direction that doesn't interest you, or you want me to go in a different direction, all you got to do is just ask and ask questions. If you don't want to interrupt me, Zoom has that great chat feature, so you can drop questions there. And what we can do is at the end, we'll get to those questions. But yeah, if you've got your video on, put up your hand, stop me if you need to. Yeah, let's kind of make it as interactive as possible. I don't mind being interrupted. Cool. So just to kick things off, does everyone have pen and paper or a computer or something in front of them? Great. So, because what we're going to do, I'm going to ask you guys to do a little bit of writing. So, cool. This is, and then I've also got this whiteboard behind me. My idea was to use the whiteboard as the medium for today, but Lindsay teased me about being from the 80s, so now I've got a slideshow as well. But we might use both. Cool. So let's get on with it. Me? Okay. The first thing I want everyone to do is we're going to do a one minute intro. So everyone's going to do their intro. So I want everyone to grab their piece of paper, and you've got about a minute in order to, I'm going to time it. You've got about a minute in order to compile your intro points. I want to know your name, your business's name, and an elevator pitch for your business. So what you do. And I want to know one thing that you've learned this week. And everyone's going to have 1 minute to present back. So take a second, think about what it is. And we'll start, we'll start going through that in a second. Cool. If you're ready, just say so. Alrighty. Great. Is anyone willing to kick us off? Or maybe what I'll do is I'll kick us off as a bit of an intro to myself, and then we'll go around. So my name is Eitan Stern. I'm from Cape Town. My company is called Legalese. What we do is we provide legal services to startups, creatives, and the music industry. We've been around for about 5.5 years now. We've got an office in Cape Town, one in Joburg. Our whole idea is how do we make legal services affordable and accessible, and how do we help people grow their businesses legally and safely? I do. One thing that I've learned this week, pretty interesting one in my opinion, I actually learned that all mammals have the same range of emotions. So a dog, a bear, a horse, any mammal, they have the same range of emotions as us, and they can feel pain, they can feel sadness, they can feel anxiety, they can feel loneliness, and anything that is within our emotional range, a mammal can feel as well, which I thought was just really, really fascinating. I always knew animals were sentient, but I didn't realize their emotional stretch was so connected to us. Good. Who is next? Go for it, Ian.
Okay, so my name is Ian Domiser, and my company is called EcoBrick Exchange. It is a skills development agency that seeks to protect the environment from plastic waste whilst creating income opportunities and structures of value. So that's my elevator pitch. The one thing that I learned this week was that aloes and succulents are not flammable or don't burn easily. And so they often use as like a fire break.
Awesome. Yeah, that is very fascinating. I suppose it's moisture. I think we've lost Ian there. Okay, cool. Thank you, Ian. Awesome. Nice to meet you. Who's next? Anyone, you can go. Just take yourself off mute and have a go.
Morning, everyone. My name is Zuko Mandlagazi. I come from Sensor. At Sensor, we develop sound assistive tools for the deaf community. And one thing I have learned this week, wow. So, no, this week it was not a fun fact per se, but something that, well, we've been conducting due diligences. And this week I've had to go to an office, one of the offices for the first time, the IDC offices, and no one is there, and I've been there before. Their hospitality is incredible. There's a coffee station, cappuccinos, and all of those kind of things. Now under lockdown, everyone is home. That coffee station, no one there, no one in the office. We spend there 5 hours without refreshments, nothing, And one thing I thought to myself was, it's difficult to do anything under lockdown.
Yeah.
So that's something that has really, not everything is difficult, but raising funding under lockdown, it's something else.
It's very tough.
Yeah, cool. So that's something that's been in my mind.
Awesome. Thank you, Zuko. Nice to meet you. And I can totally agree with you. Everything's tough, especially raising funds under lockdown. Great. Who's next?
Good morning, everybody. Eitan? Is it Eitan or Eitan?
Eitan, like Eita, but with an N at the end.
Oh, and everybody else. Thank you. My name is Kangiso Mandlala from a company called Light Shines Institute. We illuminate dark public spaces with our off-grid wireless access points lights in at-risk communities, particularly in South Africa at the moment. What I learned this week was that July was actually Men's Month. I know that August is Women's Month, but apparently, I think it's the 21st, if I'm not mistaken, the 21st of July. It's Men's Month. Unfortunately, I found out on the last day of Men's Month, which is pretty sad because nobody cares about the men out there. The poor men don't get a chance to be elevated and to sit back and watch TV all day while everything gets done. Men are just like sort of discarded, and it's so sad that we don't have people treat us like we don't have emotions, we don't have feelings. And I just want to shout out to all the men out there and say, next year, please, guys, let the world remember Men's Month and be there for the men because they care too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. Nice to know there's Men's Month. I think we're going to be all right, but that's cool. Cool. Basaso, where you going next?
Yeah, I just want to thank my General Secretary for bringing that one up. I'm glad that the out there when I GS. So yeah, my name is Bangi Somabaso, and the company that I'm running is called Sisanda Tech. So we basically making science to feel not like science anymore. We're making it fun, we're making it engaging, and through our virtual science laboratory to actually spark interest and curiosity for majority of learners that are out there. And one thing that we have learned this week was the concept. I've been listening to Seth Godin a lot of time, and he spoke about the concept of purple cow. So one of the things that he highlighted was when you start your business, focus only on the early adopters. And one time I've been trying to chase the bigger market, like the mass market, because it would make me look cool and I would be super famous. But then I realized that you only need the early adopters to actually make your product to work because they're passionate. They give me 1 rating on Google Play Store, but they're able to tell me why they would do that to me. So I think that was cool for me to learn. And Eitan, if you play my piano, you're mixing my piano, don't forget to drop a mixtape for me. I'll definitely.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. Also, I really want to concur what you're saying. I certainly built a business around blue skies, around where other people didn't see a consumer. And I think that there's a hell of a lot of value in that, and a lot of good businesses are. So thanks for that. Who's next?
Can I go next?
Yes, Portia, take us away.
Yeah. All right.
1 minute.
Good everybody, my name is Portia Mangungu. I own a company called PRT Logical Solutions, where we focus on innovations for persons living with a disability. We're currently at the commercialization stage, and we're looking forward to launch our product possibly by September this year. If there's one thing that I've learned this week is finding my flow. And that's a lot to do with self-discovery, and finding my flow is doing what I love doing. And so if I'm feeling sad, not that I don't love doing innovation and focusing on my company, but there's always that balance that you need to find and focusing on your hobby. And my hobby was always dancing. And yes, guys, dancing to Bollywood music and singing in the shower and walking around the house and singing until somebody tells me to keep quiet. But that's my flow. So if I'm feeling down about business and I don't know what else to do, I listen to my Indian music, whether it's sad, whether it's happy. I do a little dance and then I go back. So
nice.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Portia. Welcome. Nice to have you here. Who else do we have here? Who's going to introduce themselves? Otherwise, we're going to move along if no one else is going to. All the other cameras are off, so I don't know if the people are sitting there. Cool. I'm going to move along then. If anyone wakes up and wants to kind of introduce themselves, that's great. So I think that's cool. It definitely helps me getting a bit of an understanding about the businesses that we have here and who's here, which is great. I want to go back to my slideshow quickly. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. All right, so I suppose the next question here. Sorry. Okay. So what are we here to do today? So can everyone see that slideshow? Great. So the idea here is that we want to talk about startup law. Okay. Now this is a massive field, and as I said at the beginning, I could talk about the legal aspects forever, and the law is just generally massive. But the idea for us here is that we want to do is kind of touch on a few trends that are applicable and appropriate for businesses, for startup businesses and businesses within your phase and stage. And what I want to do is focus on some of those topics. And my idea is to try to demystify some of the legalese around your work. So there are some things in the legal realm that seem very complex, or that people ignore because they don't understand or they haven't engaged with it. So what we want to do today is try and engage it and try to demystify it. One of the things I can tell you is that legal work is not rocket science. Literally, it's not rocket science. It is probably the work that you do in your startups. And I mean, there's people here involved in with engineering aspects and with inventing new technologies. That's going to be a lot more complex than the legal stuff. So, you know, but often, you know, you might not have learned about legal topics. So we want to just kind of try to demystify some of that. And the one thing I can say as an oversight here, as an overview, is that business should make sense. Luckily, the hard bit that you got to do is, you know, is the hard work, as I said. But generally, what I feel is that where things in your business feel too complex, where they feel chaotic, certainly for me, I look at that as like a red flag. And where I don't understand something, or where it's causing issues and friction, that's generally where we want to like lean away. But what we actually need to do is lean in, and generally we can find a solution to make something like that work. And those often appear in the legal realm. So if you're having an issue with the funder, with staff, or with, you know, suppliers, etc., there's generally, you know, some aspect of your legal structure which wasn't well planned. So we'll dig into that, and that's what I want to kind of focus on today. And as I said at the beginning, the whole idea of this talk is to have questions. And so if you have questions, you know, you need to ask. If there's anything that you want to stop me with, as I said, put it in the chat, or just stop me. Okay. So what is startup law, and how do we do it? So what I want everyone to do is get their piece of paper out, right? And what I want to do over here is I want to go through an exercise that with everyone. Everyone's going to go through an exercise together, and I think this is going to be something that carries through the rest of this talk. So has everyone got their pen and paper out? Great. You can also do it on a computer if you want to. But what I want everyone to do is to draw what I call the startup law diagram. Okay? So we're going to draw a diagram like that on a piece of paper. And essentially, before I get to what's filled in there, basically, everything about law and what you need to know as a startup is about relationships. So your business has different relationships within it, okay? And when we talk about, well, I need the legal stuff done for my startup, or where we have legal problems, you can almost always relate that to one aspect or another of a relationship that your business has. And if we want to fix those problems, we need to look at that relationship. And you might say, listen, Eitan, we came here for a legal session, not a psychology session, but this is what I truly, truly believe about law, and this is how I deal with pretty much all of my work. So what I want to do today, we're going to dig into different aspects of these relationships, and I want everyone to have their diagram. And hopefully you've got 2 different color pens. If you don't, maybe just put an asterisk or some sort of a marker. But we're going to kind of separate things on our relationships. So I want everyone to be drawing their relationships. And what do I mean by this? So we're going to put in the middle where it says startup law diagram, it shouldn't. It should say your company name. So in the middle, you're going to put your company name, and we're going to draw the different relationships that your company has. So there could be staff, there could be the funders, there's going to be the shareholders, the suppliers, South Africa in general, the general public, partner companies and intellectual property, and anything else that you have. So I want everyone to start drawing this diagram. You can make those headings. If there are any other major groups, you can even make those headings. And what I want to do to kind of demonstrate it is I wanted to draw that with, you know, kind of use my company as an example. I don't know how well you're going to be. How's that? Not good. No, not good. So I want to try use my company as an example, and we can kind of flesh it out from there. Can you see that? Let's have a look. No, can't see. Not really. Okay, let's just go through it. I'm gonna talk out my example, but as I talk, I want you to be thinking about your business. And I want everyone to have a kind of working example, and we're going to keep adding to it as we go through the session. Hopefully by the end, we'll have an idea, everyone will have an idea of what they need to do. So I'm going to talk about staff. At Legalese, we've got 2 types of staff. We've got full-time staff who are full-time employees, and we've got independent contractors. Okay, how do I manage the relationships with those? Well, what I do is I've got employment contracts in place with those, and I've got and I've got independent contractor agreements in place with the contractors. And that's how I manage my staff's relationships. In terms of funders, I don't have any funders. It's just me. How do I manage the relationship with myself? That's a good question. I don't know how I can answer that, but good. So I don't have any funders, so I would leave that blank. Shareholders, I don't have any shareholders, but we're starting the conversation with my staff around them taking some aspect of equity or profit sharing. So that for me is a bit of a gray area. I would probably put that in red. You know, I'd say that needs to kind of be worked out. So staff, I know all the relationship with all my staff, it's very clear, no fund. Shareholding, we're starting to get a bit of a thing. Suppliers, certainly. So we've definitely got suppliers. Our main ones would be, we've got an accountant on retainer, and we've got a social media agency, two different ones on retainer. And how do I manage that? We've got agreements in place with them, and I do a review once a month for all of them. Okay. So that's my suppliers. Do I have any other suppliers? Not really. I mean, we buy stationery, etc., but that's all frivolous sort of stuff. It's very simple. You know, I don't need to have a contract with CNA to go, or Pick and Pay, in order to buy groceries. So that's fine. I've also got an office, mind you, and that's a supplier which that is a bit of an issue for us right now. It's with many companies, so I'm going to put that in red. My landlord, he doesn't want to give us a discount on the rental, even because of COVID, even though I think we should get one. So that's a bit of a red. I'm gonna circle that, my landlord, in red. Okay. South Africa, what does that mean? That means, you know, so there's a couple of things. So your company needs to be structured. You might have registered to do business with SIPSI. I've got a relationship with the taxman, with SARS, and we've got a relationship with the Law Society because we're regulated by the Law Society. So I'd put those three there. Are those all sorted? Yes, Law Society that's sorted. They don't love me, but I don't love them either. It's not a problem. It's kind of been dealt with. Partner companies, okay, great. Who would our partners be? What about Further Impact? Okay, we do work with Further Impact. We're one of their trainers for their programs, so definitely I put them there. How's my relationship with them? Do we have a contract? We don't really need one. They do. We've got a quoting and invoicing system from time to time, and we've got Lindsay. I get on well with her. Okay, that's not a problem for me. I'm leaving that. I'm circling that in green. Let's think about any other ones. Alpha Code in Joburg. Okay, yeah, we've got a relationship with Alpha Code. We don't really have any sort of arrangements in place, even though we work from their offices in Joburg. So I'm going to put that in red. Intellectual property. What about my IP? Do we own any IP? Yeah, we do. We've got legal contracts and resource banks. Is it protected? I guess so. It's on a cloud, it's stored on a cloud. Anyone who's got access to it, it's under a contract not to steal it, and we don't share it with anyone. Yeah, I'm going to say my IP is sorted. I've also got a brand name, Legalese. Is that trademarked? Yes, that's trademarked. Have I finalized that process? I'm not actually sure. I need to go look into that. And that would be my sort of diagram. So what I want everyone to do is, I hope everyone's starting to kind of flesh out their diagram and join these relationships that you have, that your business has with other people. Has everyone sort of been getting that? Give me a nod or a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you, okay. So spend another minute on it, ask questions if you have, and I want you to sort of categorize the relationships that your business has. And I want you to kind of make a note there, like either in a green or red pen would be ideal, but if you don't have those, then just do it with an asterisk, a little star or a line under it or something to say like, do I have issues here? Is there something I don't understand? Do I feel a bit of uncertainty around that relationship? And let's kind of, so everyone take another minute, and we're going to maybe ask one or two people to give us a bit of a brief around their thing. And then throughout the session, I want you to keep focusing on that and keep referring back to it, because that's going to be your to-do list at the end of this and what you need to do. Great. You got another 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds. Okay. Great. I'm going to ask if anyone is willing to do a very brief presentation of their diagram back to us. Anyone want to share theirs with us? You also don't have to if you don't want to.
So I'm keen to share simply because I was intrigued by something that's not there in the diagram, and
Okay.
it's there on my diagram. Customers. I realized that your customers, these are partner companies, and in our context, partner companies would be incubators and so on and so forth. And yeah, one thing that I didn't see in your own diagram is the customers. You know, how are we guided? Our relationships with the customers, these in our sense, because we're a hardware company and we have things like warranties.
100%. So Zuko, you are 100% correct. I'm happy you picked that up. Silly of me to have missed it, but that's great. That's, you know, there's going to be other things that other businesses are not going to have there, but certainly our business has clients. Your business is going to, all of our businesses are going to have clients, otherwise they're not businesses. So definitely add your clients onto one of those things and then ask the question, do your clients understand? We're going to deal with it in a lot more detail in a minute, but do your clients understand their relationship with your business? Has that been made clear? Great. Anything else that you want to share on that, Zuko?
Other than that, everything, I don't know if I could share individually all these tabs, but the purpose for me really to be a part of this, I really wanted to check the work we've been doing when it comes to legal aspects of our business. I mean, customers, check. Staff, we have contracts. Funder, yes, we do have funders, and there are term sheets, contracts in place. Shareholders, yes, we have one. The contract that's in place there. Suppliers as well. And with the suppliers, we have service level agreements in place for that. SA, registration.
It sounds brilliant. Excellent, excellent. I know I'm cutting you short because I want to just get to the next section, but that sounds like that you've done it very well, and thanks for sharing that. Anyone else want to share quickly? And maybe what you can share is if there's any aspects on that you picked up that there's a hole, or that, yeah.
I'll just say another one to add is the beneficiaries.
Okay, because you would be set up as a non-profit or a trust of some sort. So exactly. So there's going to be, for your business, there's going to be people that are there to benefit from it. So definitely that's going to be something to add. And is that sorted? Does everyone understand? Do you understand your obligations to them, and do they understand their rights from you? Brilliant. Yes, I see your name on the thing is Basaso, but I don't know. I can't remember your full name. The water cycle. Hit us. What is your name?
Oh, it's Basu, but you can call me Basoso. It's quite nice. I'm feeling quite
okay. So that's the name that you filled in on the Zoom, your Zoom name. Cool, Baso. Yeah. Of course, Baso. I don't think I've ever seen you in the flesh. Nice to put name to face.
Yeah, great. So while we were doing that activity, I realized that certain things could not fit well with me on my side. In terms of staff, there's been discussion with a few of the guys that have been loyal to Sisanda. They've requested that they need some sort of equity. So we don't have contracts around sort equity and how we're gonna distribute sort equity as well. And one of our suppliers, we're just producing, but we never actually have a contract with the supplier regarding our cube and how do they handle our trademarks, since when that we just went through with trademarks, but there's never been some IP protections and all this kind of stuff.
Great. Yeah. I mean, that's crucial. You know, if your business has a novel piece of technology or design, and then you have someone manufacturing that for you, what you're doing is you're handing your most valuable asset to someone else. And if you don't have some understanding of what privacy or confidentiality you have, then that's kind of looking for trouble. So yeah, definitely. Thanks for picking that up. Okay, great. Everyone's going to have a chance. So as we go through, you can definitely kind of keep sharing and keep, going through that. Just say so when you need to. Cool. So that's our startup law design. So everyone should hopefully have it. and we're going to keep working on it. Cool. So the first thing, what I want to do now is I want to dig a little deeper into different aspects of this kind of design and or of the legal structure. So I'm not going to do all of them, but we're going to kind of do parts of them. And as I say, if you have questions, we can dig in deeper where anyone wants to. So the first thing I want to talk about, it's kind of the most confusing, is where we put South Africa, and that's going to be your company structure. Okay, so what is a company structure? Every company has a structure to it. A structure is the house. It was the land that if your company is the house, the structure is the land in which it sits. And in South African law, there's a couple of different structures you can use to house your business. And your company structure is going to be wise and important because that's how everyone else in South Africa is going to relate to your business. That's what understanding everyone's going to be able to have of your business when they've never met you, is by looking at your structure. And you can have a PTY, which is a private company. You can be a sole proprietor, which is just you yourself as an individual. A lot of companies here would be non-profits, or we would have some aspect of a hybrid, which we've talked about a lot with further impact entrepreneurs. And that's because there's different aspects of that you can pick different qualities from each. Now, does everyone understand around how these different structures work and what they are? Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, you do. Yes, okay, great. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. Profit company, it's there for the benefits of its shareholders. Sole proprietor, it's you yourself operating. A non-profit, it's there for the benefit of South Africa. And then there are these hybrid structures which take aspects of both. A crucial thing in getting any business off the ground is having a very solid structure in place. And where we don't have a solid structure, we don't have the foundations of a business. The business is going to wobble. The foundations are going to be not unstable. So it's very important for us to understand what our business is. But it sounds to me like you guys are all past that stage in your business. Remember, all businesses have different life stages that they're in. You're past that life stage, which is great. So we're not going to dig too deep into that. So the next one, which I want to then look at, and this is probably going to be applicable to the design that you guys have put together, is your business relationships. And what sort of relationships in a business need management? So this is going to be everything from your partners, your suppliers, your funders, any of the people or in your diagram, your clients that you've put there. And what do I say? What needs management? Well, I think Zuko, you said, I've got a contract in place, which is brilliant. And the contract is often the last item in managing a relationship because you have an understanding on how you're going to work and how you're putting that down on contract. But when we think about the relationships that we have with all these people, what sort of things do we need to think about? Well, we need to know who's getting paid and when are you getting paid. You need to know, what do you do if someone cancels on you? What happens if you agree to do some work for someone and you can't? What happens if someone agrees to do some work for you and they can't? What happens if this morning, with further impact, I woke up with a terrible headache and I said, I can't do the session? What am I going to, what understanding did me and Lindsay have around what happens if I get sick? And that's the same with, what happens if a client pays us to do some work and we take a holiday, I don't do it. Is the client going to say, can I have my money back? And what am I going to say? Like, yes, you can, or no, you can't. Like, what arrangement do I have if someone cancels? What happens if you can't provide the service? And I put this here, it sounds like cancellation, but I put this here because it's very relevant with COVID. A lot of people were suddenly in a position that they didn't want to, they suddenly physically couldn't provide the service that they'd been paid to provide. Now, that might be no fault of your own. You might have, let's say you were supposed to do a piece of construction. You might have paid for the material. You might have hired your staff. You might have done all the building. You just can't install and finalize it because of COVID. Now, what happens to you? Are you prejudiced in that situation? So what do we do? What happens if you can't provide the service? And have you got an agreement with you and either your client or your provider or your supplier around that? What happens if Corona arrives? So, and then there's plenty other stuff in there. What other sorts of things would you want to, does anyone have any ideas? What other sorts of things do you think are going to be important for you to discuss with anyone that you're doing business with? Take yourself off mute if you want to kind of shout something out.
Maybe like opportunities for feedback.
Brilliant. So what sort of reporting? So definitely opportunities for feedback, but let's say it's, let's say it could be an obligation. If you're doing a project, Ian, let's say you've got a client, your client might say, listen, we're happy to give you money to build EcoBricks, but we need reporting. I want to know, did you use that for, a fancy new wardrobe, or did you use that for EcoBricks? I need reporting. And that might be built into your sales process. That might be, certainly if you're a non-profit, reporting is crucial. Anyone else got any ideas?
Well, my question may be that what happens when I give a client a service and then they don't pay me?
Okay, great. So that's going to be in that first one, payment terms. Often one of the things, and I know this is ridiculous, and I don't think this would be happening with you, but one of the reasons we see people not getting paid is they haven't been clear enough on payment terms. And when I say clear enough, I mean extremely clear, not just here's our quote, you owe us the money. When is the money owed? What happens if you don't pay? I can tell you our payment terms. I can tell them to you with my eyes closed. I can tell them to you in our sleep. In order to start doing work with Legalese, you need to pay 50% deposit. The remainder, the balance, is then due either on completion of the task or after 30 days if completion is outside of our control. That is our payment terms. Anyone that does business with Legalese is going to sign something to say that, and it is extremely clear. There's no ifs, there's no buts. Are your payment terms with your clients as clear? Have you put exact dates? Now, if you have and your client still doesn't pay you, then we get to another aspect of this, which is debt collection, which unfortunately is a tough thing to do. And that takes us into a different realm of client relationship. And what do you do if someone doesn't pay you? Unfortunately, it's very tough. You need to put enough pressure on them to pay. And that pressure, different people have a different pressure threshold. Some people it will be a quote or an invoice. Some people it will be, an email. Some people will be a phone call. Some people you have to send them a lawyer's letter. Some people you have to sue them, and some people will never pay you. And that's, one of the things which I suppose you're going to need to build into your business. If you're worried or you are having experiences about not getting paid, you need to be very clear on your payment terms, and you need to be charging deposits. And we hear these stories, and we've had many stories of people saying, listen, I went on a limb, I've spent 200,000 Rand on a client's task and they haven't paid me. And it's like, why did you spend 200,000 Rand before your client paid you at least your costs? Like, it's a dumb thing to do. Not dumb, it's a foolish thing to do. It's a fool's, we did it at the beginning. Everyone's made that error. You just hope that you make that error around 1,000 Rand and not 10,000 Rand.
So, Eitan, would you say that, there's a difference between a startup and a large business, like whereby maybe a startup may not feel confident to ask for 50% upfront payment?
Yeah, so definitely, 100%. Obviously, the bigger you are, the more confident you get. That being said, there's also a bit there is no difference in the practical nature of there's no difference in the practical nature of a business. So they both have to collect money, and you'll probably find big corporates also have a big debtors book. So yeah, your word where you put it as confidence is the right thing. At what point do you have enough confidence to ask for that money up front? Moreover, if you are doing work and you're worried about people not paying you, should you be doing that work at all? So that would be my argument. And then my last argument to say, I think that people respect confidence in business. And if you are certain about what you need, you will attract better clients. That's what I think.
So what would you say are the advantages and the disadvantages of asking for 50% upfront payment?
I would say the advantage is that you are not cash flowing your clients' businesses, a massive advantage. Disadvantage is you might lose clients, which I think you should lose anyway. I don't think there's a disadvantage, basically. Okay, I think there's only an advantage. You will lose the clients, anyone who's not willing to pay a deposit without good reason. So we don't, our best clients, the ones that we've got a relationship with, the ones that I trust. If Google had to come today and give us an instruction, I wouldn't insist on a deposit. But that's like an exceptional circumstance for me. For my main day-to-day work, yeah, I need deposits because otherwise I'm funding other people's businesses. And why can't I do that? Because I can't afford it. I don't have the money for that. I need your cash flow is as important as your revenue. Anyone else got anything to add to that? What sort of things you would need to have agreements with suppliers? Okay. So then as we're thinking about this, and this kind of relates to our diagram, I think there's 4 major types of suppliers. You got 4 major types of relationships, sorry. You got relationships within your business as your partners and your shareholders, the internal ones. You got relationships externally, your suppliers, distributors, clients. You got your relationship with the government or society as a whole, as we said. And you got a relationship with property, which is a little bit different, but we're putting it into this area because it's, all businesses have either some form of property or intellectual property. So again, all I'm trying to hone in on here is what you need to be thinking about in your business, and what lawyers do, what we do for a living for our clients is we go through this, we find out what relationships does your business have, we separate them into these kind of categories, and we look at the relationships and see, are they managed well enough? Does that make sense? Okay. So then the question is, how do we manage these business relationships? If now we understand, cool, we've looked at the diagram, we understand where the red marks are and where the little holes are, how do we manage these relationships? It's a great question. So the first way that we do it is we manage it through contract, which Ian said already. And what is a contract? A contract is a meeting of minds. It comes from an old Roman word, Roman concept. Contract literally means consensus, the meeting of minds, where both people understand the same thing. And that is so crucial in business, because if you have a different idea, and it certainly happened to me, it might have happened to other people. We've occasionally done a bit of work, and the client says, well, I didn't know we would be in charge for this. And if I look back to the process, maybe I wasn't clear enough. Or did I not send them our terms? Did they not pay the deposit? Like, maybe they weren't clear enough. We've hired part-time lawyers who've produced some work for us, and they would have said, I thought that I only needed to have this done in 2 weeks. And we said, no, we needed them in a week. But if we didn't say it, how would they have known it? So the first thing is around contract. Now, has everyone heard of does everyone remember the Please Call Me case? Has everyone heard of that? Do you know what I'm talking about? So do you know those Please Call Me's that you can send on your cell phone? So the guy who invented that, Kenneth, I forget his surname. Surname's lost. Anyway, he was an employee of Vodacom. He invented those, and he went to his bosses and he said, I've got this idea, and Vodacom did the idea, and it made a massive value add for Vodacom, into the billions of rands probably. And he's been fighting a legal battle for the last, almost 20 years, about 15, 18 years around this thing, because he's trying to get paid for his work. And so a lot of people think that's about intellectual property. They say, well, he had an idea, he gave it to Vodacom, therefore he needs to get paid. The case isn't about intellectual property at all. It's all about contract. Because he went to his boss, Alan, not Craig, and he said to him, I've got this idea, and if you like the idea, you have to pay me a portion of the profits. And his boss said, yes, sure. And then he gave the idea and Vodacom launched it. But what he didn't do was have it in contract. He didn't have it written down. And that's all he needed to do. This whole legal battle that he's been fighting for almost 2 decades would have been over very quickly if he just had that written down. But instead, they're trying to rely on, on verbal contracts, and he's trying to rely on verbal contracts essentially for that. So I guess the important thing here, what I'm trying to illustrate, is with all your suppliers and everyone in your diagram, do you have an understanding? Do you have a meeting in mind with them? And is it written down? And if it's not, and if there's any areas where there's any gray area and it's not on paper, that needs to be delved into. Okay. The next one is, yes.
Yeah, I just want to agree with you there.
Sure. Okay, great.
I had a situation with one of my partners where I literally wrote down everything, even though obviously, as you say, a verbal agreement has legal standing as a written contract. But however, it's easier to prove a written contract. So basically, for lack of a better word, to kick him out because he wasn't really doing anything, it's because I had it written down. But if it was a verbal thing, it would have gone forever, like this 18-year thing.
Exactly, 100%. Verbal contracts are binding. It is very, very hard to prove. Great. So, right, something else on that. I don't know if anyone's ever got recently insurance with outsurance or probably with other suppliers. They phone you and they go through the contract on the phone. They say, we just want to let you know your monthly premiums are going to be 212 Rand a month and they're going to start on the 1st. And then you have to say, great. And then that's the contract. They've recorded that. They've done a verbal contract, but it's recorded. It's quite innovative. The idea is they've got a record of it. If you don't have a record, hard to prove. The next thing is structure. And with this, I don't mean business structures. I mean, every relationship has a structure, and it's important to know who everyone is in that structure and what hats they're wearing. So, you know, let's take people working for you. Are those people employees? Are they contractors? Or do they have some form of equity? With your clients, are your clients clients of yours? Are they on retainer? Are they, you know, where do they fit into it? If you're working with another business, do they have equity in your business? Are they is it a joint venture of some sort? Is it a partnership? It's very important to understand the structure of it. If you've got, you know, and to understand people, the different companies in your relation, in your diagram, how do they fit in? What hats do they wear? And do they think they wear the same hats as you think they wear? And you might think, Eitan, that'd be ridiculous, man. Obviously, everyone knows who they are. It's not the case. Dealt with we've dealt with shareholder disputes where the one shareholder says he wasn't a shareholder, he was an employee. And she says, no, I wasn't an employee, I was a shareholder. Those exist. We've dealt with, you know, like, we've dealt with people, you know, if there's IP that's owned within a structure, within a business, who owns that IP? How is your business structured? Are you licensing the IP of someone else? Is the IP owned by the business? How is this thing structured? The next thing, what I want to say in managing business relationships is about protecting your value. What do I mean by that? I mean that every business has value somewhere in it, and it's going to be different. If we think about a business like Facebook, what is Facebook's value? In terms of not what are they worth, like what's their valuable item? Anyone know?
Data.
It's probably today becoming, exactly, today we would call it data. We used to call it users. We call it data. Under their value is they've got very detailed information on like 2.8 billion people. That's valuable. Their technology is not valuable. Someone could rewrite that, not quickly, but it can be rewritten. 2.8 billion people on your network is valuable. What about a brand like Nike? What's their value? Nike shoes, where's their value?
I would guess and say their endorsements.
What do you mean, like the people that they endorse?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Anyone else? Something around there. Anyone else want to have a think about that? What's Nike's value? Maybe it's brand presence. Yeah. Okay, cool. Endorsements, brand presence. It's interesting. I think that a lot of people would say their value is their shoes. They sell shoes for a living. Surely their shoe designs and their air technology, that's valuable. And I think you guys are probably right. If Nike launched, they could launch shoes, they could launch clothing, watches, they could launch hair accessories, they could launch TVs. It would be successful. Why? Because they've got a strong brand. So what do Nike do? They're probably not that fussy with their shoe designs. A pair of Nikes this year is going to look like a pair of Pumas the next year, or a pair of pick and pay specials 2 years later. It's not that valuable, but the brand is valuable. You can't use a Nike tick. You can't say just do it. Why? Because that's what they protect. So a business like Legalese, what do we protect? Where's our value? I think our value is probably our team of lawyers, probably a little bit of our branding, and, you know, probably like our resources, our way of doing things, and probably our client base. The client base who trusts us. That's where our value is. So what do I do in my business with the relationships is I protect that. I make sure that the trademark's a little bit, the name's a little bit valuable, so we protect that. Any staff that come work here, sign a confidentiality agreement. You can't leave with my resources, absolutely not, and I will hunt you down if you do. Any clients that we do work for understand you can't resell our work. It's not for you to resell. We sold it to you. And yeah, and other aspects around that. What else? I want to make sure that we're different to other lawyers. So we take timelines quite seriously and we take pricing quite seriously. I don't want anyone to have an experience of coming to us and not being clear around what they were being charged. Why? Because that hurts my brand. That hurts then I've messed up my relationship with my client. That's a value to me. It might not be a value to you. So you need to look at your business and decide where's your value and how do you protect your value. And if your value is IP, protect that IP. If your value is client list, protect the client list. If your value is your methodologies, protect that. And if your value is an asset, let's say you're selling assets. We had one, I think they were from Red Bull, they went there from another incubator. They had a food, like a kiosk in Langa. Their biggest asset was their kiosk, which they had developed and built and put a lot of effort and money into. It wasn't insured. So I was like, guys, your biggest asset, your branding is nothing. Your supplier relationship is nothing. Your clients are nothing because it's going to be people passing by. But your biggest asset, the thing that will shut down your business or not if it gets stolen, that's not protected. It's a big issue. With me, my business, we've got I don't think we've got insurance now in the office, very minimal. Why? Someone can come. What do we have here? We got some laptop screens. We got some tables, chairs. Cool. Steal it all. My business will survive if you steal it all. I might have a day off work. Everything will survive. So that's not important to me. My value is on my contracts. Where is your value? And what are you doing to protect that? Is that clear? Good. Next thing I want to say is act professionally. I think that, you know, and this kind of answers your question from earlier around deposits. I really think people respect professional work. So if you push your level up, I think people are going to, who gets to tell you if you're a big or a small business? No one. So act like a big business and people treat you like a big business. Act like a child, people treat you like a child. And then the last one, which is a bit crude, progress. The further down the line you are with the business, so that's more around protecting intellectual property, but the further down the line you are with your business, the more your intellectual property is protected. So, you know, if you have an idea in its infancy, it's going to be under a lot of risk, but the more you've showed it to the market, the more protected it is. And then the last one is don't be an arsehole. Why do I say that? I personally believe there's I don't know what to call it. Maybe it's a social science of some sort. Generally, if you do things that are right and act in good nature and good faith towards the people around you, your suppliers and your clients, it will come back to you. When clients argue with us about invoices, we generally let it slide. When supply, you know, like if suppliers want more from us or want to pay on longer terms, kind of fine. Like we don't do anything that's going to hurt us, but we try to be good to the people around us. And I feel like that just sort of comes back. That's a bit airy-fairy, but I personally believe if you run an ethical business, people will be ethical towards you. Any questions? The last section I want to go through is shareholders agreements and then IP. So any questions around this?
Eitan, regarding the value, I think that's what just stood for me on this part. How are there any steps or are there any tools that you know that could let us to know how to actually see what is a real value within our company? You know, that
let's talk about your business. Let's talk about your business. Explain briefly what your business does.
So what we did, we have developed a virtual science laboratory for learners in grade 4 to 7 to be able to experiment just using their smartphone or tablet. So our app uses augmented reality as the base technology. And we got this chat and we got a small cube like this. You have to build it together. Oh, I see my green screen doesn't allow you to see it, but it comes together and kids can build it and to be able to enjoy our experience.
Right.
You know?
It sounds to me quite like your value is this technology that you've built. Yours is an intellectual property value. It sounds to me like there's value, like your business would be harmed if I came and took and copied that and launched it and called it Eitan's educational tool. Your business would be harmed. So I feel like that anywhere that you are showing people your intellectual property or this device that you've built, you're going to need to make sure that people know not to steal it. So I guess the answer to your question, how do you do it? It's just about thinking through your business. And I'd be happy to go through that with anyone here, as we can think through your business and look where the holes are and where you protect that value. Great. I'm going to move on, just because I realize we're kind of running down on time. Shareholders agreements. Now, I know you've had a session on this before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But what is a shareholders agreement? It's an agreement that you have. So a share is a portion. Agreement is the meeting of minds. It couldn't be simpler. It's an agreement that you have with people that own part of your business. Shareholding is share ownership is like any type of ownership. I can't come and take your computer. I can't come and take your phone. I can't come and take your shares. No one can take it away from you unless you have agreed on how they can take it away from you. So I think when, and who here has shareholders? Just give a thumbs up or thumbs down if you've got shareholders. Okay. Okay, good. So people have shareholders. I think that in managing your relationship with your shareholders, there's a couple of simple points or overview points that I think you need to make sure that you understand with your shareholders. I can go through them. The first one is ownership. Who owns what in the business? Is that clear? If you say, well, it's a bit unclear, we don't really know, that's a massive issue. The next is roles and responsibilities. What are your respective roles and responsibilities? What can I hold you accountable for? And what can you hold me accountable for? Crucial. I know we've dealt with issues of that with some of the NQBs. The next one is control and decision making. How are decisions made for your business? Who's in control? Are decisions, does everyone make them? Do I make certain ones and you make certain ones? Do we need to vote on them? Who gets to vote on them? How are decisions made in this business? Because your business is going to need to make decisions. The next one is the next one is money. Sorry, I should be going through this. Ownership, roles and responsibilities, control, decision. The one that I have left off this list, which I shouldn't have, is the money. And I define that as money going in and money going out. So who is putting what money into this business and who is taking what money out of this business? And do we have an understanding on that with your shareholders? What happens if the business needs more money? Is the money that we're putting in on a loan or is it an investment? Do I get it back or not? The money going out, who's getting paid what salaries? Do directors get paid? Do shareholders get paid? When will the shareholders expect to get dividends from this business? When can your funders expect to see a return? Is everyone on the same page? Now, if you look at everyone who invested into Uber, one of the biggest public offerings in history, is still a loss-making business. People don't seem to care. All the shareholders say is, no, we're fine. Keep making a loss. We'll keep plowing money in because there's such value in this network that you're building. We'll see the returns at some point. Now, that's how their shareholders think. But do your shareholders think the same? Or do your shareholders saying, cool, I'm willing to give you 100,000 Rand to start off, but in the next 2 years, I kind of need that back and I want to see returns. Now, you can't just run a non-profitable business forever. I need to start to see returns. Is everyone on the same page with when they're getting money out of this thing? The next one you need to talk about is what happens when you disagree. Do you have a procedure in place that you'd go through if you have a disagreement in your business between your shareholders? What happens if someone wants to leave? Now, if, let's say you both work on this business and after a year, someone says, listen, I'm not feeling this, not enjoyable, I want to leave. Can they leave and keep their shares? Do they have to give back their shares if they leave? What rules do you have around what happens if someone wants to leave? And certainly for an early stage startup, that's crucial to have in place. Next one would be a milestone for review. You know, businesses, we shareholders relationships, we try to build these with the future in mind, but the reality is we'll probably only get, you know, like, you know, and when you reach a certain milestone, let's say when you get funding or in a year or 2 years time, it's probably worth reviewing. So put some milestones. So when are you going to review the shareholders relationship? Now, if you look at that list, including the money aspect, which isn't on there, if you don't understand any of those with your shareholders, then you need to look a bit deeper into it. And you need to come to an arrangement with your shareholders on that. Any questions? No questions. Okay. Then the last section there, which I want to look at, which I haven't included, is intellectual property. What is intellectual property? Intellectual property is, let's actually close this for now. What is intellectual property? Intellectual property what's the word? It is the property of the mind. It is the non-physical. This is physical property. An office would be immovable property, and intellectual property is property of the mind. So now, not all businesses are going to have IP, and not all businesses' IP are going to be valuable to them. What is going to be, I'll come to a question in a minute, what is going to be valuable? So, but if in your business, like with yours, Basil, your intellectual property is valuable, and so what are you doing to protect that intellectual property? So going through this idea of IP, it's understanding what IP do we have and how are we protecting it? And I guess in general, with that whole thing, you know, if we look with that whole thing, like that is how we, if you go through this idea that we just have with your business, and you go through this one by one, okay, we look at your business relationships. So we look at your business structure, the relationships that you have, the shareholders' relationships, which is one like any other one. It's just a very crucial one. We look at your IP. If you've gone through those and you've got no red marks on your paper, then I would say you're good to go. You've got things set up really nicely for scale. But if you see red marks everywhere there and you're like, I don't really understand our structure, I don't understand the laws, we've got these people that think they're partners, we don't have any arrangements, I got people that own equity in this business. Like if you've got if that's going on, then you know you need to start to dig deeper into that. And that's the sort of challenge to you. So what I want everyone to do, you know, after this is to take your diagram and make notes of it. So wherever you've put red, wherever you've put relationships that are not clear, you need to dig deeper in. And again, this doesn't need to happen overnight. You don't need to panic. Most startups are going to have this issue, that they're going to have aspects of their work, of their legal structure, which is not sorted. Why? Because legal stuff, it's a mission. It's not sexy. So that's going to happen. But have a to-do list. Have a game plan. Order them in terms of priority. If you don't understand your relationship with your shareholders, get on that immediately. If your IP isn't protected, it's quite important. You know, but if, you know, and then you can kind of go down the list. Like some of it, if your supplier relationship's cool, we'll get to that. Your staff are happy, there's no cool, we can get to that next month. Like have an order of what to do. But if you're not engaging with it, then you're kind of looking for trouble. And that is my shtick. We can ask, the next thing would be question time. Who has got, well, let's get to the last slide, question time. Who's got questions?
A couple of the guys actually sent through questions, and I think cool. Nondamiso, why don't you shoot, because you've actually sent through a question about a week ago already, so go for it. Ask away.
Brilliant. I've actually got your question here, Nondamiso, but you can ask it as well. Why don't you ask it for the whole group?
A different one as well.
Okay.
So with the PTY side of our company, what we do is that we outsource trucks, and then we connect customers with trucks. So which means we are actually outsourcing trucks to go to the customer's house. And it hasn't happened with us, but it has certainly happened with truck operators operating on their own, whereby sometimes their trucks kind of break down or they damage the customer's property. In the case whereby customers actually having the picture, or rather the thought that we are the ones who are owning the truck, what is it that we can put in place to protect us when the truck operator kind of damages the customer's property?
Great question. So you run a business which we would call a kind of a two-sided marketplace. Well, it sounds like you do. So you've got your truck drivers on the one side, your clients on the other side, and you sit in the middle as an operator, as an agent for the two, similar to the sort of Airbnb or Uber sort of model in it. So it is crucial that you have very, very, very clear terms of engagement that both sides of your marketplace understand that you are not liable for anything, that you are just a middleman. So when you rent an Airbnb, you understand, well, I'm renting from this person just using Airbnb as a platform. And that's a very popular model for businesses right now. But it's crucial that you have your terms of engagement in place. And specifically, if you're running your business through any sort of automation, like an online marketplace for the stuff like Uber or Airbnb would do, that it's very important that you have proper terms of engagement in place on your website. And because if you don't, then it's inevitable that someone's going to come to you at some point and say, well, we engaged with you, therefore you need to sort it out. And what you want to say is, you didn't engage with us, we put you in touch with someone else you engaged with. So it's possible, you just need contracts in place. What was your other question? Or does that answer your question?
Well, I'm just wondering as well, I mean, should it only be on the website? As in, like, because we use the already existing platforms, we haven't yet gotten an app or something. We use Facebook and WhatsApp to communicate with our truck operators and our customers.
So you don't have a website that they go to, you don't have something that they go to sign up?
Not in particular, but I think maybe if they contact us, we can.
Great. So that's definitely a gap over there. So you don't have a clear relationship with your clients or with your suppliers. So those both. So that's definitely a hole that we can see, because anything. I mean, you've pointed out one thing that goes wrong, but I can think of an infinite amount of other things that could go wrong. And so it's very clear that I mean, how do your clients know when to pay you? How do they know what happens if they cancel? So it's very important that whenever your clients are going to sign up for your service, that they are agreeing to your terms.
Sure.
And same with your truck drivers.
One of the other things that with the case of us not necessarily asking for 50% upfront, it's because we are literally, should I say, selling responsible waste disposal.
Mm-hmm.
So like what we did, that you don't necessarily have to pay us if we don't actually show you the picture of where your waste ended up. Okay. So that's what we're selling. And I mean, the customer that hasn't paid, it's because we then sent the picture afterwards and they didn't then pay. So that's where I'm asking about 50% upfront.
Yeah, so I think that sounds like I'm going to speak like quite a hard lawyer. It sounds like a very noble business proposition, but it's not built. That's a very problematic one, because you leave your payment responsibility into the hands of a client who can just say, cool, whatever, it doesn't matter what she sends me, I'm just going to say, yeah, that's not good enough. And that's very possible. And so it's a very noble thing to say. You can maybe say to your client, listen, we'll give you, if you're not happy with where it goes, we'll give you a 10% discount. But I think if your business is set on the idea that the clients can decide, that there's a value that clients have to say, listen, we're either happy or we're not. It's like when you go to a restaurant, the restaurant doesn't say to you, well, if you're not happy with the meal, you don't have to pay. Of course not. Like they made you the meal, they have to pay. So I think that that's a bit of an issue with your payment structure. But if you are set on that, then, and that's your value in your business, then that's totally fine. That's totally fine, but then you're always going to have issues with non-payment, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, cool. I might have a lot of questions, but this is the last one from the one. The one is it's the terms between us and the truck operators. So the truck operators are obliged to actually tell us or send pictures to us of where they disposed of the waste, especially because we tell them where to drop the waste. And it happened previously that maybe a truck operator driving their phone dies and they have no battery to take pictures of where they're going to dispose of the waste. And of course, for us to get paid, we need to send pictures, and for them to get paid, they need to send us pictures. But sometimes they, as the truck operators, tend to think that because they've done their jobs, they are entitled to the payment. So I think.
So that just needs to be made. Has that been made in very clear and in writing to them?
We have recently done that, but like in cases whereby the battery dies, they then tend to go after they've disposed of the waste, and to the client, that is not a satisfying picture.
It sounds like you have an operational issue in your business, not necessarily a legal one. So the legal aspect, if you've wrote that down, that needs to be made very clear to the truck drivers that if you don't take a picture, you're not going to get paid. They need to understand that. And your clients need to understand what their payment relationship is. But it sounds like there's something a bit difficult operationally in your business, that your value of what you're trying to get out is for people who have like for the plumbers, the truck drivers, that's always going to be an issue. And I don't know how you're going to solve that. I'll give you an example. We hired a plumber 2 weeks ago. The plumber came with a phone to take pictures of the whole thing to make sure that they could send back. They clearly have a system. And I guess that plumbing company has had so many clients complaining about things, being broken, that they needed to show, listen, this is what our staff did. So they've obviously given each one of their staff members a phone in order to take pictures on. That's how they solved it. Now, I know that's not going to be possible with you, but certainly operationally, you need to think of something to solve that issue of how you make sure that truck drivers send pictures. Legally, it needs to be made clear on paper, but operationally, that sounds like a bigger challenge. But it sounds like a really nice business and a very cool value proposition. So well done. Who's got other questions? But we can talk about that in more detail another time. It sounds very interesting. Yes, Ian.
Okay, so I was wondering about creating like joint venture agreements or non-disclosure agreements. Is it as easy as just like downloading a template? Like, can anyone do it? I remember studying contract law actually at varsity, and something about like the contract has to be lawful.
So all contracts have to be lawful. Look, non-disclosures are, by their nature, very simple agreements. It basically says we're going to discuss some stuff. You agree not to steal it. I agree not to steal it. You could download one, but I would really recommend understanding what that NDA says, because NDAs do have different contexts. I don't know which one you're going to download. So certainly getting one that's applicable to your context is fine. But if you read it and it's in English and you can understand and you like say, this says exactly what I wanted to say, then that's fine. But the general, so I can't speak to the value of a contract that's online, so I haven't seen it, but as if you were ever going to download a contract, an NDA would probably be one of the ones to do. They're not very complex. Contracts have to be lawful. So me and you couldn't agree to go and rob a bank. You couldn't say, Eitan, I'll pay you 100,000, and if you go rob a bank, then I rob the bank and I don't pay you, and you don't pay me the money, I can't sue you for it because it wasn't lawful. That's what that means. But so if there's something unlawful in the NDA, sure, but it would have to be a pretty whack NDA. It to be something unlawful.
And then if the terms of the NDA are broken, what is the action that you must take?
So this is the tough thing really about everything in law. The actions that if someone does something wrong to you, a civil wrong, so not criminal. If someone commits a crime, they beat you up, they steal something, you can go to the police. But with civil matters, the only thing you can do is ask the person to pay for damages. And if that person says no, your next step is to sue them. So it's just a question of how much pressure you can put on someone. Ask them. If they say no, you're going to have to sue them for it. And hopefully, in my years of being a lawyer, very, very, very few matters ever land up in courts. Generally, people are able to negotiate a settlement. So asking them often is a good first step. Asking them, and also just figuring out what pressure can you put. For example, if someone doesn't want to pay you, let's say an architect might say, listen, my payment terms are the following. I need 50% deposit in order to start the job. I need 25% payment upon first presenting the plans to you. And then before you get the final plans or anything in high res, I need full payment. And then what have they done? They've got leverage. You don't pay me my money, I'm not going to give you the work. So that's leverage. What leverage can you have? We don't really have that sort of leverage in our business because it's just not how we've chosen to do a thing, but also our invoice sizes are quite small. We're doing 2, 5, average probably about 6,000, 7,000 Rand invoices. If one client doesn't pay me, it's annoying and I'm going to hound that person, but it's not going to shut down my business. So I can be a little bit more lenient on those payment terms because it's not that crucial to me. Very different to, we had a client who they do a couple of jobs a year, 250,000 Rand jobs. If one client doesn't pay, that's going to shut your business down for sure. So they're going to need to be a lot stricter than I have to be. And you need to decide in your business, where's your level? Where do you sit?
Yeah, because I mean, for me, like the collaboration thing and giving people access to your IP, do you think a joint venture is adequate of a contract to protect that IP?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a joint venture is as good as whatever it says on that contract. A joint venture is not a structure like a PTY. A joint venture is just whatever it says in the contract. And it says, great, me and you, Ian, we're going to go and create some eco bricks. You're going to go and you're going to build the bricks. I'm going to go provide the legal services. And I will put in half the funding. You'll put in half the funding. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, we both walk our separate ways. It's as good as that. If you haven't dealt with who keeps the IP in that joint venture contract, then you've got a gray area and you need to. So whatever is in your contract for joint ventures is what's going to count. Sure. Go back to the questions that we had online. So Ian, you've asked yours. And Dumisa, you've asked yours. Portia, your question is, how do you gain royalties from your IP and create a contract for your company to use the IP? Okay, so let's deal with that. So royalties is where you've got certain intellectual property and you allow other people to use that intellectual property at a fee. So, let's take as an example, someone that says, I've developed a really great type of pen. Brilliant. Excellent pen. Can write in space. It's a fantastic pen. I sound like Donald Trump. Brilliant pen. Best pen you ever had. So you've got this brilliant type of pen. Now I can say to Lindsay, listen, Lindsay, I'm in Cape Town. I'm selling my pen. You're in Joburg. Why don't I let you create my pen? And I'll send you the design, I'll send you the model, I'll send you the suppliers' names, and every pen you sell, you're gonna give me 1 Rand. Brilliant. Sounds like a great business model. Where's the value? The IP. As soon as Lindsay's got the IP, she's gonna take it, she's gonna run off, she's gonna make it herself. So how do I protect that? I need to have a contract in place with Lindsay that says, listen, I'm gonna only send you this pen, the designs. Once we have a signed contract that says, you're not going to steal it, you agree to pay me my royalties, etc. Is that foolproof? No. Why? Because some people, are bad people. And that's something that's another big thing you have to realize here. Trust is a big part of any business. Just as you can have the best contract in the world, but if you're working with someone that's not trustworthy, it's going to be an issue. So you're going to need to suss out the relationship. Do you trust them? Have they given you issues? That's obviously a big part of it, but having a contract is a good first place. So that Portia, how do you do it? You could put the contract in place. Is it wise to do so? Certainly, I think it's a nice business idea. And then your question about if you've ceded your shares to an investment company and the IP is in your name, does it still belong to you? We've talked about that in some detail. My belief is that it certainly does. And I don't think that they could claim IP rights, but if you've signed something that they could, then they could.
Thank you
Good.
so much. Thank
Give me a pleasure. Any other questions?
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Sure, shoot.
The first one, if we have somebody overseas who have an interest in us, And when we do those contracts, do we do them based on South African law or on those people's state, or how does it work out in that terms? Okay.
What's the other question?
And the last question was, if the artwork that we have for our products and everything, let's just say we trademark the artworks, and at the same time, we also opt for common Creative Commons for other people to just remix other stuff, but still maintaining the artwork that we use. Does that make sense, or does?
Yeah, it does. I would need to be, Creative Commons is a specific type of way of copywriting or dealing with IP. I would need to kind of find out a bit more about that example to give you a definitive answer, because Creative Commons has rules around how it works. But to answer your first question about what country do you operate in, look, your preference is always going to be South Africa. Your business is here and you operate here. If a client says I can only deal with you if you're willing to operate according to US law, then that's fine, but you're going to need to decide if you are able to. Is your business legal to operate there? What happens if you get sued there? So it comes with some questions, but your first choice would always be to operate according to South African law. But if you're dealing, if Google comes to you with a contract, you might want to look, it might be valuable enough to look into what the US law says in that instance. Okay, I have to start to wrap up. We've got about 2 minutes till 10:30, and unfortunately, I've got a fairly full day. I've got something else starting in a few minutes. So
I think Eitan Kanyisa, he posted something in the chat a little while ago.
Yes.
Kanyisa, I don't know if is it a question that can be answered in 2 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
What's the quickest way to launch my IP in terms of VCs wanting to find out more, and obviously MOUs and MOUs and NDAs not really binding in law, as you know, but to what extent is the emphasis need to give them to them? Because if they say they give us an NDA, just toilet paper to some people, so I can't just give them my technical specifications if I don't know what they're going to do with them.
So it's a great question, not a simple one to answer, but we can definitely go through a few aspects of it here. So the question is about how do you pitch your IP out there without people stealing it? Now you said to VCs, which is a definite person you're going to need to be, a group you need to be pitching it to, but it might be to suppliers or clients, or what we've seen a lot is people pitching their ideas on Kickstarter and that sort of thing. So I'd say a few things. First of all, NDAs, it's not true that they're worthless. There is something there. Are they difficult to enforce? Yes. Are they difficult to find the obligations? Sure. But if you've got a document that says to a VC, I'm going to come pitch you an idea. If you like the idea, you'll fund us. If not, you won't fund us. And they've said, great. Then that obligation is there. It's on paper. If it's clear on paper, then it's clear. The same with the MOU. If the MOU has binding terms to it, then there's a binding. Are people always going to listen to that? No. So you might have an issue. But you do sit with an issue that you can't grow. It's kind of a conundrum. You can't grow your business idea without sharing it. And as soon as you share it, it's under risk. So I say a few other things. So certainly a contract is the right thing. Trust. Don't pitch your business to anyone, and don't pitch it to people that have an interest in stealing it. So a VC might be a particularly good person to pitch it to. Why? They're in the business of investing. They're not in the business of running businesses. So just remind me what your business does again.
The lights. Wi-Fi.
So I would be very weary of going to Eurolux and pitching your idea to Eurolux. They're in the business of stealing, of doing lights, But if your VC is probably not. At the same time, if a VC got the reputation, if a reputable VC got the reputation of stealing startups' ideas, they would lose their business very, very quickly. So again, do I trust this person? Do they have a good reputation, etc.? You need to ask those questions. And then the third thing is be careful of giving away IP that you don't want to lose. So, you said the technical specifications, etc. You could say, this is my idea. The real secret sauce, the technical specifications in this, I'm not going to share with you until I got something signed, unfortunately, but I can answer I can show you the higher level stuff. And that might be some aspect of how to deal with it. It's not always easy, but that's what you'd need to try to do. And then, yeah, that's sort of it. But, you know, are there issues? Do people still steal ideas? Yeah, they do. It's unfortunate.
Thanks. Sorry, but you didn't answer the first part of my question. Thank you for the last part. The first part was, okay, so yeah, so you're right. The issue here is that they're in the same industry, so they could potentially, because they're designing something similar, but similar to what I'm doing, but similar. So I haven't actually officially launched it because I'm still in completing the design process. I'm just busy with the MVP right now. My question is, how can I quickly launch, how can I quickly register it in the interim while at the same time? So in other words, give them information, but at the same time,
so the answer is that
launch it legally.
So the answer is that you can't. Any sort of ideas, you would need to have something there which is protectable. Copyright is protectable. So if you've written something or did a design, you own that automatically. How do you register it? Have some sort of an online marker for it. So send it in an email to yourself to show that on that day you had it. There's no, if you want to register the design of something, you can go through a design registration process. It's lengthy, it's costly. I'm not sure that's going to be relevant for you, but in general, it's hard to, you can't protect ideas. You can only protect an idea once it's a physical manifestation of that idea, once it exists. So that's yeah, so it's a difficult process. So once you've got it existing, have some proof, you know, like an email to yourself or an online data marker that you had it on that date. Yeah.
Yeah, and particularly, can you so where yours is a combination of two different but existing technologies. So you've got, so you can't protect the idea of lighting and you can't protect the idea of Wi-Fi, but what is it that's your secret sauce as to how you combine the two? So until you've got that, until you've got that and it's clear and protectable, then you have nothing that can be stolen because it's all in the public domain anyway.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
That's the point of it. But what Eitan is maybe saying is that maybe the only thing that can protect me now is just the paper trail to just, if I email them, just keep track of that because I've had people stealing it in the last few.
Maybe, okay, so maybe let's have a quick call next week and we can talk about it in a bit more detail and kind of look at that situation specifically.
Okay.
All righty, guys.
Eitan, thank you so much. And please slip away. I'm going to wrap up with the guys. But thank you. That was really awesome. I'm sure we've got our Legal Eagle sort of game on. So thank you so very much. Really appreciate your time.
It's such a pleasure. And this is one of the joys of the job. So, and if you've got more specific questions, it's hard with legal issues to really get an answer in a general way. But just like some you have, you can always come chat to me. I'm always here to help. Thanks so much for having me as well. Nice to chat to you. Such a great pleasure. Such a great pleasure. And guys, and thank you so much for joining. And as we say goodbye to Eitan, I want to remind you that if you do have legal issues, you know, we've obviously been quite general. Some of you have more specific questions, and just to iterate what Eitan's actually said, if you do need a session, please, you know, approach us and we can arrange accordingly. Eitan, don't feel like you have to stay on. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and then also I wanted to say to you guys, so interesting over the last few sessions, how relationships have come up over and over and over again. And I think, you know, what Eitan was saying about trust being a big thing, and also trusting your gut. You know, I know that we've had a few talks of potential partners or someone who wants to collaborate, and you guys go, oh, I'm not really sure. My gut's not really sitting well with this particular one. Don't underestimate the power of that sixth sense. I think that's something that's a wonderful gift that we all have. It's just you've got to just make sure that you can hear that voice. And something else I really loved was understanding your value and protecting your value. I mean, I didn't think about it in that sense. So also something to really, really hold close, I think, as you go forth on your journeys, your social and impact enterprise journeys. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. And because next week end is the gathering, we're not going to have a masterclass, because we'll all be together doing all sorts of other cool stuff. I'll be popping the program through to you on Monday. So amped, so excited. I mean, literally, it's a week. The countdown has begun. DM me if you have got questions or anything else. And Ian, I don't know if you have anything to add. But yeah, lots of information coming your way. So please just be mindful. We don't want to bombard you, but we've got to sort of sort out some logistical things. So be patient with us, and we'll try and keep it as concise as possible. Ian, anything from your side?
No, all good. I think yeah, your point on relationships, going back to the legal session, I thought it was really good, because it is, you know, law is, and documents and everything, it's the scary part, and it's always the last resort. You know, when things aren't working, you have to fall back on that. But if you manage good relationships, then the chances of you having to resort to legal processes is limited. But it is worth, you know, it's like anything in life. If you just spend a little bit of time, and yes, a little bit of money up front, making sure you've got some key documents in place, you'll save yourself a world of pain and expense at a later stage. So as soon as you can, just document those relationships with all of those stakeholders. Yeah. Okay, and we'll see you next Friday.
Well put. Well put. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for coming prepared.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.